Well, to help us answer that question, joining us here in Washington to talk about all of this is Joel Rubin. He's president of the Washington Strategy Group. Eric Bowling is a conservative political commentator and author. With us from Montreal is Yan Wang. He's a partner with Alpine Macro and their chief emerging markets in China strategist. And also with us right here in the studio on the set is Jonathan Broder. He's a senior writer for Newsweek. Welcome to all of you to the show. Joel, let me start with you. President Trump has sent Congress a record $4.75 trillion budget. Among other things, it calls for more military spending, there are cuts to domestic programs. And to be clear, this is a wish list. Congress will have the final say on what happens with this budget. The president, of course, will have to sign off on it. But looking at the budget, what do you make of his priorities?
Well, Anand, his priorities are debt, debt, debt. And that is not what the American people want. It's not what the president promised. We have $1 trillion deficit now this coming fiscal year. And there's no plan to reduce that, and it's going to burden our children. And the priority on defense spending is out of whack with the priorities. A significant number of retired admirals and generals have already written that we need to not spend so much money on defense. We need to invest in diplomacy and development on foreign policy. And here at home, cutting Medicare, cutting environmental protection, cutting housing, cutting subsidies for the poor. These are just misplaced priorities, and the president is really harming Americans in this budget.
Do you agree that it's going to be very difficult for the Democrats to vote against the increase in defense spending?
Well, first of all, let's put a marker where the problem is. The tax bill that cost $1.5 trillion was supposed to enhance economic development and reduce our debt burden, and it has not. Democrats predicted it wouldn't.
Wait, hold on,
and
it's revenues are down. It hasn't enhanced growth. There were people who said we would never see a 3% growth number in the United States, but we did. We just had a 3%.
And we're not. And
the last quarter growth was 3%.
And fiscal balancing was thrown out of whack by that.
I'm just saying you can't say there's no growth attributed to the tax.
Here's the thing, though. But
Anand,
to your question about defense spending, we certainly need to invest in defense. There's no doubt about it. National security is the priority of the president, the commander-in-chief. But this is not a national security budget. This is a defense waste budget. Talk to many people on both sides of the aisle. They're deeply concerned about defense spending being out of whack. And cutting diplomacy is cutting off our nose to spite our face, and we're doing that by nearly 30%.
So, Joel, as Yan Wang points out, the president is partially correct there, but we just had a very weak jobs report. 20,000 people, 20,000 jobs rather, added in the month of February alone. What does that tell us about the economy?
Well, first and foremost, in these first 21 months of the Trump administration, less jobs have been created in the last 21 months of the Obama administration. That's a fact, and the president is going to have to own up to it that he right now is presiding over an economy that's built off of Obama's successes. I will say, and you have to look at the numbers on this, the deficit was going down each year in the last term of President Obama, and now it's skyrocketed under President Trump. So be it as it may, history, but right now President Trump is riding a wave, and he's not building jobs off of it, and it's deeply concerning. Because when jobs slow, one needs to look at government to invest in the economy to build that back up, and we're going in the opposite direction. We're not going to have enough money for it. So President Trump, I'm not sure what his vision is for jobs right now. Tariffs with China are not helping in that front, and I'm just not sure what he's trying to promote.
Both sides of the aisle kind of wink and nod and say we can't.
So we just did a big tax cut bill, a $1.5 trillion tax cut bill, and the president said this is going to reduce our deficits, and instead they go up. Americans are wondering where their tax refunds.
The deficit went down.
No, it did not. The deficit is going up.
Well, it's
going to be a $1 trillion deficit. And Americans are wondering, where did our tax cuts go?
They went to 3% growth, Joel. They went to 3% growth.
Tax cuts, the promised tax cut was $4,000 rebate per family. It's not even near that. So Americans are wondering, what is this fiscal policy? Is it $4.75 trillion? And
you can run debt, you can run negative on a budget when you have growth, when you have robust growth.
We don't have growth to match this. Okay. How important it is? It's critical. The American working class right now is suffering from this tariff, which is it was an unexpected cost to rising prices in steel and agricultural products, and the president said that they would cover those costs by an appropriation, which of course got held up by shutting down the government. So this is not working for the American worker. Now, Democrats have been complaining for years about China trade and trying to ensure that we enforce a strong trade regime with China. The danger here and what we're concerned about is that President Trump is going to cut a bad deal. He has a history of cutting bad deals in international negotiations. He's not going to cut a deal that is going to help the American workers. He's going to find some excuse to get out of it. Maybe there will be a patent that will be released to his daughter and something else will come through. And instead of sticking up for the worker, they're going to be stuck with the bill.
His base, Americans look at it as like, wait a minute, we're sending tens of billions of dollars to the countries for their aid to build their walls, but we can't build yet our own wall.
Most foreign aid goes to Israel and Egypt and military assistance.
That is not true. We give $3 billion to Egypt.
The biggest
Israel
chunk of Americans' foreign aid is to the security assistance account. Central America gets a pittance. It gets much less than $1 billion.
I disagree with that vehemently. And we can look it up, but I will tell you that I believe that there are several $1 billion that go to several different places in Central and South America. And frankly, why should we?
We don't.
What is it? So what would be wrong with? But we do, though. We spend 40.
Eric,
how many billions?
I'm sorry, I have to disagree.
How many billions do we spend in foreign aid?
We spend
40 billion.
No, we spend. Well, last year it was 56 billion.
56,
including State Department operations, not just foreign aid.
Exactly. It's the budget for the State Department. It's also USAID. But
there is direct.
But Joel is right. Joel is right because the amount of
countries.
money that we spend in actual foreign aid, the most of it goes to Israel and Egypt.
Okay, I want to move on to something completely different right now. This is nuts and bolts politics, Joel, here in Washington, and that is this announcement by Nancy Pelosi saying that she has no intention of impeaching Donald Trump.
Yeah. Now that's causing some heartburn in the Democratic base, as you can imagine. I think it's prudent. I think she also added that it wouldn't be worth our time, maybe in a little more colorful language. I think she's right in there, too. Impeachment is not something to be messed around with. It's not some legislative tactic. There needs to be a grounds for it. But if there are grounds for it, if the Mueller report does provide that, if investigations that are underway, legitimate investigations, as they all are, Congress has the right to investigate, if they find things that are impeachable, then this opens up. But I don't think it's just a political discussion.
Okay, Jonathan, I'll get to you, but word is that, you talked about the Mueller report, word is that there's nothing there.
Well, we don't know if nothing's there, considering all these people that are going to jail because of his investigation. So I have a feeling where there's smoke, there's fire.
It's amazing to me that Democrats ran on impeaching Donald Trump in 2018 when they know they're not going to be able to do it.
Well, Democrats ran more on fixing health care than on impeaching the president.
In 2018? Oh, stop it.
That's right. I think that's why the speaker has decided to hedge a little bit and says, let's see what we get. But don't commit ahead of time, and I think that's the right approach. Why commit to a process before you know the justification
but isn't our best
because someone, look, everything about this whole investigation has been leaked. We knew things were coming before they happened. Someone has to have leaked to Pelosi that this is going to be a big nothing burger. This as far as nailing Trump. Yeah, you have Manafort, you have Roger Stone, you have a lot of satellite players, but you don't have Trump. So she's got to start walking it back now.
But isn't our best indication that there may be nothing in the report the fact that there's been no indictments on conspiracy?
Yes. Or leaks of such.
So far that we know of, what we know is that all of the top people around the president are going to jail for lying about interactions.
Do you remember when President Obama's IRS was targeting conservatives specifically, and the thought was, well, if you just get President Obama an email, a conversation, or someone to say President Obama was involved in directing that to happen, he was going to be impeached. It was an impeachable offense, but you couldn't do it because you guys were smart enough to put the ring around the presidency. Guess what?
No.
All presidencies are that smart.
No, it's not analogous because every single senior advisor to the president was caught lying about their interactions with Russia, which is why they're going to jail.
Well, I didn't say that. I said
but that didn't happen.
You guys
with President
were smart
Obama.
enough to put a ring of plausible deniability around the presidency, as was the Trump administration.
Eric Holder faced severe consequences. I don't think Democrats got off scot-free on that one.
Joel, do you buy that? That'll push the president over the line?
Well, I think that the president is still the president, and because of that, he has an inherent advantage, and the Democrats are going to have a very difficult primary campaign season. It's going to be ugly in some moments, too. And there's no telling how far the president is willing to go to utilize his office to get reelected. That said, Democratic enthusiasm is at an all-time high. We had the highest turnout in 100 years for an off-cycle midterm. So it's not just about the Mueller report. They came out for a lot of They came out for a lot of other reasons, and those are policy reasons.
You know what your enthusiasm is? And the socialist ticket, and that is a death knell to the Democrats in a presidential election.
I know that that's how it's being wanted to be framed, but that is not what won across the sweep in the last midterm.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks to all of you for being with us. That's it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.